Jesus.
Yeah. It's just gonna be together.
Is that right?
Okay.
And you're gonna go first? Is that cool?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Get it
This
out
is
the
what
way.
I heard.
This is your copy you're reading from?
Yeah.
Or you have multiple copies?
I do.
Is there one special one?
I'm gonna read from that one.
Okay.
Cool. Nothing special. I got something for you.
I just need something to look at.
To focus on. Need something pretty to look at.
Well, and so
Instead of all these
fuck up the
people.
titles. Yeah, and I want to fuck up the titles. You know, I want to get that right.
Yeah.
There you go. That's Sonny Lynn's movie.
Wow.
Same dress. Yeah, she wanted me to hand some out.
Oh, nice.
Doesn't even see them.
Nice. Awesome.
It's more like a.
Is Matt coming?
I didn't send anything out.
You need to Matt Gonzalez?
I did.
Okay.
But like I didn't like send something major out. I think we have a reading at some gathering on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can send the info out. But I gotta get
Wait, you and Sonny?
No, me and she can't make it to New Orleans. But two other people they publish Florida Express.
Okay.
That'll be like the book release.
Can you send me the... I'd be curious.
Yeah, I'll have to email it to
Okay, please. It's Tuesday?
you. Or Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. Back to it's Tuesday. So that's why I gotta get in better shape.
I'm around. Well, so you're reading Sonny Lynn.
You know, I'm reading my.
You're reading you. Oh, okay.
This wasn't kind of like the official press one.
Gotcha.
But they asked me to read Beckett. So I had to be. I've been playing. I was like, I'm reading from the book already, but it's not a book release.
Okay.
The signs is book release on it.
Oh, it does, yeah. It's okay.
Hopefully he doesn't walk by.
Is the Wednesday or Tuesday event in San Francisco?
Yeah, it's an art gallery in 49 Geary. Yeah, one of those 49 Geary.
Yeah.
Those floors.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, I used to be a good friend, I've worked with him a long time. He's still a good friend. His name's Felix McNee. Yeah, he's an Max, when I first moved here in 99, be ready to be interrogated. So I have two huge readings in Lorca's room. And I used to have one when I lived in Fillmore on house lawn that I used to write to all the time.
So he's going to be there.
Yeah, it's his show. Oh, so it's kind of like a closing show or something, or maybe, I don't know what it is.
That sounds good. Sunny Lynn gave a good reading of your work in Garrett's backyard.
Main man.
It's really sweet.
He's looking at me like that. Concerned. Whale eyes.
I was doing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. He's like cooking. On Subway like a man. And that got me. Yeah. That's why I never go to those places.
Remember that story with like
Yeah.
Mongolian barbecue?
Yeah.
He was like sick for a week.
Yeah.
I didn't like
Jason
the
Russell.
huge
All right.
alley we were writing.
I haven't been taking good care of myself. Like, I haven't been going out, just been working and writing poems and barely drinking any beers, smoking a lot of weed. Well, a lot of weed is like a joint lasting 3 days. Not really a lot. Too strong. And I wait till later at night. I don't know what this one is. Tell you I made it?
Yep.
Yeah. I know. This is over a cat power t-shirt, sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where I hide my weed in this guy's mouth. I just put a little.
I really liked that show that you did on here at PBS about the couple that invited.
Oh, yeah, the road trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
The most fun I ever had on making a movie.
That was a really nice series.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Well, thank you. I think that's the longest one we ever made too. It was a 3 1-hour class. We made a few 2-hour ones. But
Is it just three episodes?
yeah,
Or 4 of them.
yeah, that was nice. But that's how long it took from Chicago to LA. You know? It took us really to get the stop point.
Yeah, it would have been 4 if they'd started from New York.
Beautiful. I was going to take it home with me. Beautiful. Really nice. I love the cover.
also very difficult.
Meeting with somebody else.
And I realized with the bit she was kind of like fussy, and I've been using a Bozal with her, a lawnmower, for mid 4 years, but I do use it once, one ride a week with the Bozal. And I was just taking it really slow, and I wasn't convinced either of my skill or her reaction. So finally I realized with these melanomas, it's just time to just go for it and take her out, because I never took her on the trail. I was always putting the Bozal on when I rode her in the arena. Well, she's been amazing how she's responded to that. Just so much more sensitive, and I've been really, I think, there's this sort of little spot. I don't know if you've ever ridden in a Hackmore. There's that spot. It's like, this is too much, or this isn't enough. So it's much more interesting for me, because I think I was a little heavy-handed with the Snapple anyway. And so she's responded to that. And if she gets into a sticky spot where she doesn't want to go forward, and I bend her around and just say, no, let's go. Having that pressure, that fulcrum on her nose, she hates it. And so she's much more like, oh, I don't want to do that. So she's been like going out on the trail, just like, yeah. And I just had to trust that sooner. And it was only because I felt like
Los Angeles.
melanomas in her mouth.
You think if if you've been using that
bought that in LA.
6 years ago,
I don't know if I was ready or she was. She's a big horse, and she's like 1,200 pounds. And she's not. She may be 15.3. She's more like, Frisians are like bulky but not necessarily tall.
Designed
But
for
she
warm
has
weather.
an engine in her hind end. I mean, she could levitate off the ground, do a 180, and hit the ground running. So, it was partly me knowing what I was capable of and feeling like I wasn't ready, but it's made a huge difference. And she's been amazing.
what's your name?
Shimmer.
You drive over here?
Yeah, I have. When I had my
Speedy.
The trade-off is that my other one,
yeah, it wasn't
25.
Well,
She was the PMU mare from Appaloosa breeder up in Canada. She's really got the trail this summer. And the last couple rides I did, I could just tell she wasn't enjoying that. And she's totally blind. And we've done wonderful, wonderful rides with her being blind.
wow.
But really, recently, she's just kind of started this very ribby.
Anything you can do with pads?
I don't know. I mean, she's definitely on Pergolide, Cushing's meds
Yeah.
already. Has been for years.
Yeah.
I don't want to do
My mother texted me and just said,
That's expensive too. Very good.
Consequence, I know. So
Consequence expensive.
that's mainly it. But she does take a Pergolide and a Consequence that has Consequence. I'm not into massive, for a horse who's 25, you're not going to do too much.
We had a 30.
now you have a Graham Smith down on the double game.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling.
He was on both of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was even beginning to wonder, but
Yeah.
he just, he had his last day, and I was hurry it on.
Yeah.
But,
I had a mare that went into her 30s.
yeah,
And,
it's rare. It's
kind
rare.
of 5 or 6 years longer than I thought.
To really take care of her.
Yeah. I didn't ride her. I hadn't been riding her for maybe, maybe 8 years. She'd been just strictly retired. She had a lot of arthritis in one knee and a lot of bone spurs and stuff. She'd been off the track as a harness racer. She was a standard bred. So sweet. That's a really nice breed. Very pretty.
Where do you have your horses?
They're
So, I'm going to be introducing the poets. My name is Patrick James Dunnigan. I've known each of them over 20 years, almost the exact same period of time, I think. I might have known Kevin longer, I believe, by maybe 6 months, because I arrived in San Francisco ahead of Micah Ballard by about 6 to 8 months. So I've lived in the city slightly longer, and no discussion about that. Moving on. First of all, thanks to Bird and Beckett Books, and definitely to Eric and Nick Whittington for not only running this great store for as long as they have, but also for publishing Kevin's most recent book, which is Dharma, Pharmacy, and Surf Shop. And they've also published a chapbook of Micah's, which is right here. And the other book that we're celebrating is Micah's Busy Secret. And now I'll read a few short words about each of these fine poet gentlemen. When Micah Ballard first met and fell in love with San Francisco and took rooms in the city for his own, he didn't have sufficient ready money to buy any furniture or jewels. All he could do was be happy. So he borrowed money from me. And from that moment on, San Francisco has shaped our lives.
Financial aid.
Kevin Opstedal is a brilliant critic, but not of literature, of surfing and poetry, dogs, love, life, and the fine, fine weather of California. In his cast of characters, there is asphalt, Catholicism. He admires all. His enthusiasm for fine things and ultimate pleasure always arrives the middle of the month and is gone by the end of the month. These things are the really important things in Kevin's life. Micah will read first. Thank you all for coming.
Hello all. Thanks for coming out. Thanks, Nick. If the podium is shaking, it's because I'm on steroids. Literally. So I'll hold it. Francis Farmer. Embroidering pranks, delicate helix hand, please forgive my radiance. Of new and ferocious types, this is your tomb too. The remote control is for everyone. In the sky there's no competition. Cigarettes smoke themselves. All the clouds could care less. Banter is only banter. It polishes its own secrets. When the heavenly demons arrive, where will you be? Please keep next to me. Let's see. Balmy vapors. Unseen beast, gleefully tawdry, an average leech, vaguely stunning, smearing the walls of life study classes. I hold a new torch and record the sounds of darting eyes, eventually cloaked as a perfect surrogate for my second coming campaign. I never ghost, just track their smudges. Like me, some of them vanish into isolation because the franchise comes first and spaces grow between atmospheres. I don't even know what that means, but I hear it as it hears me, like physiognomic or forfeiture, or a need to reclaim and activate significance. In the higher jungle mansion, you try to leak out through the doors, but say hello, call it temporary, and triangulate the gaze. See, I'm not nervous. I've done this enough times.
You're doing great, Micah. You're doing a marvelous
Thank
job.
you. Just gotta, I'll just do it like this.
Just do it
Okay.
this.
Shh.
I think that's going to be just magnificent.
All right. Interlocutory. Arrested for telling fortunes without a license, I orient my services using stunt dummies around actual crypts. The bullets are framed and led into a sunken garden, disguised as a tent in the sky so the benevolent thespians can levitate again. I am nominated to be one of the levitators, a noble beast nipping generously from the land of limbo. Turns out trusting the galaxies is draining. Who brought the wand to tipping table anyway, and wired the gowns 100 bones per fitting? I am not trained, but can connect you. Among the gullible, I'm on a word fast. They say I have the psychic facility of a dog. Okay. I think that's it, since this book's shaking so much. Kevin? Shit. I can't move my hands. All right. Can't move my hands. Raincoat binoculars for Jeff Butler. Fist Mountains pass the messages to the edifier so the undertakers can bank their parlors and catch some knuckle boogie. I claim corpus delecti, then show up in a pirogue of aching good times. All the beefing crowns wear flowers of signorial nods. Some of them are pimps or deacons. It's difficult to unfeel their touches. A drugstore voodoo drapes me in a raincoat of typewriter silk. I float uninhibited and become all the words they say. Being an anomalous spirit, I am blessed with social acumen and psychic scars of holy glee. You can't see them because they belong to me. All right. Sorry for the shaking.
Got my cheaters on. I'm ready to go. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Eric. Especially Nick for doing this. Just a beautiful job he did on this book, which he's famous for at this point. I'm going to read... to start off, I'm going to read the last poem in the book, which is the title poem. I was debating whether or not to do that because it's a long poem for me. It's 5 pages and some change. But I figured, I read this and it'll shoo everybody out of the store. Yeah, Dharma Pharmacy and Surf Shop. This actually should be read in one breath, but I'm a little out of training, so I will do the best I can. Dharma Pharmacy and Surf Shop. The sun has yet to show itself, but it's light enough to know it's dark. Damp neon blinking beneath palm trees strung with seaweed. You know the drill. It could have been the parking lot at Zuma, just me and Our Lady of Lucid Dreaming, or however the story goes. As the scriptures say, drive it like you stole it. The azure reticence of her waterproof mascara as linkage, retreating to the pulmonary root that rattles within a sigh, as if the look in her eyes could mean anything other than unlimited rehearsal time. Under the spell of the obvious. Gravity versus gravitas. Like the detour sign she hung on the wall above the bed. Something which should have a certain metaphoric appeal to anyone who has an extended playlist. I suppose it depends on how the light falls. the position of the sea in relation to the sun this time of year, and whatever else it takes to download the shop manual under ideal conditions. The sky dropping in to add a little contrast with brocade and collision insurance, as if pelicans and cormorants flew commercial on plum-colored mists in sharkskin tuxedos. Like an ode to the west wind, but from deepest caves of ocean abyss, full of sighs and accumulated loss, the memory of which is rippling in the eucalyptus. The flowers of Michoacan come to mind, only to be usurped by that silver sheen of mist above the bay, a drifting cloud, no specific plan, no direction home. The living, breathing ocean, something other than water? But in the steep alleyway above the beach, where your footsteps still echo after all these years, the drift of time, a small part of it anyway, breaking blue in chalk outlines just south of the seven sleepers of Ephesus. The wind kicking up off the waves made me want to barbecue my surfboard and confess to crimes that hadn't been committed yet. The drum machine in the late tide, taking it up a notch, with Tootie Ma, Good Golly Miss Molly, and the Jesuit surf team in attendance. Like fragments of a low sky riding high above and to the left of the Monterey pine, the sidewalk bending in that certain slant of sunlight, scheming green scenes with jugglers and patron saints, as we could practice lip reading with our eyes closed and suppose a forged prescription might help make ends meet. Once you felt just that pure, I know, but time chips away at your carbon footprint, and dreams are nothing more than a landing strip for seagulls. Exhausted from hauling the heavy gray sky up and down the coast day after day these many years as you keep score. Threads in the weave would argue a pattern, but I drink from the bottle. And now the marine layer flattens out as light and shadow trade places. Deep waves, pebbled foam, dark sand, eye of seagull, beak and wing. Like Sunday morning wrapped around a self-conscious 12-pack in the fridge is just another way to deal with the protocols of redemption. But then I guess you won't too soon, as girls with names like diphtheria, typhus, and encephalitis slide in and out of focus. Parenthetically, I said, "You are the needle in my wing," and like a broken string on the fortune teller's banjo. And having predetermined the path of least resistance, you occupy the southwest corner of my heart like a thin sliver of sunlight falling among blue-eyed shadows. She said she'd be my broken mirror, her candy-colored lips assigned to a mysterious smile. What wasn't said took a little more time than that. 2, 4, 6, 8 and a quarter, like pushing a dump truck through quicksand. Tempus edax rerum, Ovid. As Shakespeare, Sonnet 19. Devouring time. No doubt Golding's rendering. An ambiguous rhyme, culpable by extension, leaves a crease where your mind used to be, gone into receivership. Ovid in exile. Had to get his beauty sleep in the garden of perpetual Stoke. Woke up to seagulls arguing in absolute fog. Raw eyes, lips reloaded in the rearview mirror. A wind went by just now. It had traveled across the vast Pacific, sprinted over the beach at Cowles and up Ocean Street, stumbled through a few palm trees here on Wipeout Avenue, and continued on out to Donner Pass, future beachfront property if the Mayans were right. The tide, as it breaks, drawn toward that silver, renders the ocean a ring of steel. Reference the Odyssey, Book 11, a manual of surfing. It's just a short walk to the beach, but we crossed several time zones along the way. Cuernavaca, Marrakesh, tales from the Vienna woods. Slipping past the sobriety checkpoint, as often as not. Knocking down auguries of innocence in rusty tide pool sessions. A high-pressure bridge building above the offshore breeze. The weatherman says, heat wave. Martha and the Vandellas. In Santa Cruz, the early morning ocean fog keeps the temp in check for the most part. The other part swims in night sweats, finding love in the rushes, as aforesaid by Circe in the law of averages. That was a poem. I love drinking a beer during a reading. It reminds me, the very first real poetry reading I went to was with to see Charles Bukowski, and this was him. So, Hank Bukowski. This is the first poem in the book, so we went from the last to the first. It's called Calculating the Drift. A drive up the coast, behind the wheel of an awkward silence, doesn't allow for the heavy ordnance, nor the charming way the woman beside you bites her lips when you speed shift around those blind curves singing off key. The doctor says it's bad for my thermostat, but I say it isn't the song so much as how you sing it. Pomp and circumstantial evidence racing past the Department of Planned Obsolescence, and less than a mile from there it all turns to glass, which shatters when you hit the high notes. All right. Nowhere fast. You are still testifying at the trial of the century. One hand on the Manchurian surf almanac, the other describing an arabesque. And so the sky tips back into the redolent haze, a powder blue upholstered barcalounger. I tune into a concerto for cypress tree and fence wire, a virtuoso of the plastic saxophone, diminished chords, steel drums. A mandolin could be mistaken for a cement culvert. This day is beginning to look like Oscar Wilde in a bunny suit. A looped and windowed raggedness prevails. I'm reading a book about the Opium Wars. And out on the sidewalk, I can feel the concrete beneath my sneakers as I watch my shadow skipping to keep in step. The sky and the streets, like me, slanting down into the sea. One day I may truly learn to drink like a fish, but in the meantime, the light is, as expected, blue, surf and surface, beneath which I imagine vast machines and turbines roar, attended to by Aztec mechanics, as only they can who skip to the edge of mythology and back, with feathered headgear and tire-tread huaraches. And back in the car, we downshift through the Four Noble Truths on our way to Stinson or the midnight taqueria, Pollo del Mar, off Highway 1. Only sighs stood between us then, as you ordered the nachos and asked for chopsticks. A pale blue-green silver, eye of albacore sky, leaning against your mind, like a bulldozer, leaning against a feather of mist. Let's see, I'm going to read. This is a poem in, I think it has 4 sections, titled sections. Roll Me a Pearl. First section here is, Monsieur Tarzan buys a record player. The fog rolls in right on time, and it's enough to make you kick up the high beams on your Manson lamps, burning a hole through all that damp nothing. Why not? Just hangs there, like a seagull, swimming unexpectedly into this poem, applying the weight of a single feather to the tone arm as the Flying Burrito Brothers reinvent Dharma transmission as a 3-speed with a Hurst shifter. Skip trace. I said everything I know I learned at the movies, but I didn't mean it that way. When the late show ends, the detour takes us through Pismo Beach by way of Kathmandu. Dense fog laden with salt spray and methyl mercury. Voices in the eucalyptus. The slightest breeze starts a new conversation. But words are only a part of what's being said. The bitter angels of our nature. The forest primeval. The florist of evil. Baudelaire. Bela Lugosian, Island of Lost Souls. Morphine, like swimming. Manzanita, seaweed, fuchsia. Nasturtiums clinging to beach pavement, not as it is, but as it really was, back in reality, susceptible to mood swings and mile-long shadows. She said, I'd hate to say I told you so. And then she did. Roll me a pearl. I was paddling through the shallows, waiting for the tide, and you were cascading vertically on the beach, as did St. John of the Cross before he rusted out. The single fin aesthetic notwithstanding. Tilted mist, imaginary whispers, blue, green, and dark. The rush of foam across the sand, an immersive program. Tiny bubbles. I drew a blank shaped like the great coral reef. It didn't quite remind me of you, or the money to be made installing stained glass windows in the shore break. Such passion is like a delicate flower with bruised knuckles, like an octopus tap dancing in a tide pool, like a Spanglish translation of Catullus parked outside the fantasy camp. Something no one will ever remember or forgive. I wanted to mention that this book has been published by FMSBW, the same ones who published Micah's book, and primarily because of Micah's floating this idea past them. My book on Bellinus, which a project I'd started in 1985, so 39 years later, it's finally in print. It's been online for 16 years due to Joanne Kiger intervening with Michael Wolff to have him put it on his online Big Bridge. But I don't have my author's copies yet, so I can't hand any out or give any to you, but I wanted to mention that. And also because it's a great segue into the fact that I brought up a lot of There are a handful of broadsides tonight. These small little broadsides that I brought. And that gives me the opportunity to read this one that's called At Bolinas. Has nothing to do with this book. And has to do with my own experiences in Bolinas. At Bolinas. Beach eucalyptus rattling its silver blades, understood by the bending mirrors of the tide in a dyslexic translation from Latin to neon. California spelled with a K as in catatonic. And I'm rolling downhill backwards, reciting the 23rd Psalm, the cantilever section. But in the grip of madrigals and torch ballads, if only to say, shake the hand that shook the hand of Charlie Manson and the Wu-Tang Clan. Expecting waves to descend from the sky, not to abbreviate surfboards, but the float switch approaching 0 hour when no one's looking. And having mastered the art of walking Spanish, I was uniquely qualified to spill a Bloody Mary on your itsy-bitsy teeny-weeny yellow polka dot kimono, leaving a stain shaped exactly like my life. I'll read a couple more of these and then we can say good night or good afternoon. I'll have a Negro Modelo and bring the octopus a White Russian. The way that story ended is how this one begins. Another missed shot falling short of the paradox, with a little R&R between nosebleeds, that we might learn to distinguish the murmur of eucalyptus leaves from the blue lemon sky in a Ziploc bag. The ocean-colored ocean and a heavy slab of sunlight. Loaves and fishes, stems and seeds. Snap decisions broken in half by a misjudged floater on the wrong side of the jetty. I never planned on being here this long. Never read the small print. Never heard the warning bell at lights out echoing long before it struck. How often like a thief, sleepwalking from Tehuantepec to Kubla Khan, loaded to the springs. All right, we can sign off with this one. The Spanish Prisoner. Heavy breathing and tattoo redundancy occupy my narrow attention, as it were the day of the locust between sips of swamp water and the poems of Hart Crane. When a guy walks in with a duck under his arm, for medicinal purposes only, like a trick you can do with an ordinary deck of cards, but dreaming it backwards, the Book of Waves, an annotated list of painkillers, Ecclesiastes, a.k.a. the Guns of Navarone, and the winter sky, scarred like the underside of a skateboard. I mean, you could. And tumble through smoke rings, sampling the verisimilitude burned into the lucid pavement that still manages to rise up and catch every step you take. Thank you so much.
Since I shirked my responsibilities at the beginning and made Patrick talk, I just want to say that I'm thrilled to have published this book. What do you want to do about the broadsides? What do you want to do about the broadsides? You want to just take them?
Yeah, just let people take them.
If you want one of these lovely little broadsides over here on the front music stand, take one. If you feel like giving Kevin some money, that's lovely. If you want to buy Micah's book, it's up at the front counter. If you want to buy Kevin's new book, it's up at the front counter. If you just really wanted to hear more of Micah and weren't up to it, you can grab one of his old chapbooks, gratis. It's the one with the Christ symbol on it. Micah is going to be reading again soon somewhere. He disappeared, so I can't ask him. But I think on Tuesday, you got another
I think it's Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I guess I thought it was Wednesday, but it's probably
Wednesday?
Where?
It's someday this week. You want to tell us the details?
49 Geary. It's a museum.
49 Geary, the gallery building.
Which one? There's a whole bunch of them.
I don't know. I just got the.
Well, it's probably findable somewhere online, but these folks are hosting a reading, so you can hear them there more. Thank you for coming out, despite everything, and being here for Kevin. Kevin, thanks for driving up. And normally I would send people to the bar at this point, but the bar is closed for flooding. So hang out, relax, be family. Oh, Patrick has information.
Tuesday, July 23rd, at the K Imperial Fine Art on 49 Geary, and it should be Micah, Fran Carbonaro, and Tamsin Spencer Smith.
What time?
5 to 6:30.
Thanks.
And
There
it's
you go.
a celebration of Felix McNay's solo show.
Okay.
And he's a painter.
Tuesday. Okay.
Okay.
And Micah and Silent had a wonderful portrait by him for a number of years in their house. And I can attest that the work's interesting. It's figurist, but it's kind of abstract figurist. It's funky.
Yeah, but you'd be going for the poetry, so, you know,
Yeah, but it is
do it. Thank you, everybody. Socialize.